Well, the first question, well, first of all, a statement. One of the great merits of the European Innovation Day is to bring together so many professionals like you that work on accelerating companies. By the way, there are others that are listed in your program, and there's also a Nordic dimension, for example, to acceleration, the Vikings, and also we have an Innovation Center Denmark. We're all part of a big family, but maybe the question to our Spanish friend first, why do we need national accelerators after all? If the market works, why do we have to have a national flag?
I guess when the government is involved in putting funds for the accelerator, we just want to help our own country, I guess. In the case of the Spain Tech Center, we just received the funds from the government of Spain and also from Banco Santander. So we try to focus a lot in companies that are in a really early stage and they have a product in the market, but they are just starting to get there. And we want to help them grow and come here. And I think that helping them from here, we give them a chance to actually success.
So let me then ask very briefly to each of you, are you then public-private partnerships? Is that public or only public or only private? It would be interesting to compare the different national systems. Valerie?
Hello. We are an American private company, but 100% owned by the Paris region and other French region. So we are private and public.
And I hope this works, yeah.
It does.
So I'm from the Netherlands, and we are a real consulate in the traditional sense of the word. So we provide passports to our countrymen. At the same time, we have an economic mission as stipulated by our government in The Hague. And our mission is to help Dutch companies, growth companies, and larger companies from the Netherlands find success in the Western United States, including in Silicon Valley. So we are not a traditional accelerator, we're a consulate. We have an economic team that helps companies from the Netherlands build out their business here. At our consulate, though, we have 3 public-private consortia in 3 sectors that are our partners from the Netherlands that we work with closely, for example, in the life sciences corridor and other sectors.
Thank you, Anna. What is the German model here in this case?
Well, the German model, so first of all, hi, Freddy, German Accelerator. We are a privately held company and privately founded in US Inc., but we are backed by the German government, and 90% of our funding basically comes from the German government.
Nuno?
Thank you, Mauro. We're also a consulate, but we have here a Portuguese accelerator, Portugal Ventures, that is at Runway Incubator. And we just launched a new Portuguese organization called West to West, which basically bridges Portugal and Silicon Valley. And I can talk at length more if you want.
Right, West Coast to West Coast, right?
Yes, I mean, like you know, we like to brand ourselves as Portugal being the Europe's West Coast. And so it was not easy to find a name for an organization to bridge both West Coasts.
So what is the silver bullet, if any, that can allow companies to accelerate? I mean, after all, is it, you give a steroid dose to them to accelerate their normal process. What is that you give them that should convince them that being in your accelerators is a good idea? David?
In our case, what we do is actually helping them figure out if Silicon Valley is actually a good market for them or not. And we help them also try to answer the question, is it now the right time to come here? So what we do to help them figure that out is we have a 2-week program with them where we put them in touch with a lot of high profiles from companies in Silicon Valley. We put them in touch with other Spanish companies that have succeeded in the Valley already. And through workshops and sessions, we just want to make sure that if they come, they have all the information they need. And sometimes the answer is not coming. Sometimes we're not ready. We have to come back to Spain and keep working.
Question is, what is the metrics for evaluating the success of a company taking part in your programs? We'd like to ask our German colleague here.
Well, as we're Germans, we have KPIs, obviously, right? So we track, and we have our companies fill out questionnaires in the beginning of the program, and then in the end of the program, and then again 1 year after they have finished from the program. So we really track every single number they want to give us in terms of funding raised at the beginning, funding raised at the end, funding raised after a year, but then also how many employees do they have? Have they set up a new subsidiary or a subsidiary in the US market? How many employees do they have over there now after a year later? So KPIs like that, and this is what we track, and this is how we track that.
So you can demonstrate it does work.
It does work, of course.
And again, if you should identify one single element, variable that is important to define it. Well, if they have an exit, of course, but if there's no exit, how can you, what is the key element in your opinion that can define a successful acceleration process?
So first of all, maybe how we also help them. And we have top-notch experience, and we really work with experienced serial entrepreneurs that are our mentors, and that we match them with our startups, and we have them have one-on-one mentoring sessions for a certain amount of hours every quarter, just for that part. And what do they actually? What was the question again? Sorry.
No, which is the key thing? Is that I'm very happy because this company has really made it at our accelerator.
Right.
We really did it.
So it's, of course, what is success, right? But funding is a big success always. But of course also setting up a subsidiary, a lot of times success is they have learned, so they jump the learning curve here in the Valley, right? If compared to when they stay in Germany. What they learn here in 3 months, which is actually the length of our program, they will learn, I don't know, they won't learn in the next 2 or 3 years in Germany. And when they go back, they first have to use up a lot of time implementing what they have learned. And then eventually, after implementing all of that and rethinking their entire company, then they are actually, then they're ready to enter the US market.
How do you react to the comment from some observers in Europe who say, we are actually spending money on exporting capital and talent to the West Coast? They already have lots of it. Why do we have to invest our money there instead of investing it, I don't know, in Berlin or in Paris? What is your reaction, Valerie, to this kind of, does it happen in France? Do you get this kind of objection?
Yeah, definitely. And the answer, I think, is quite obvious. Nowadays, a company cannot stay in, especially a tech company, cannot stay in one country. A tech company must be global. And the US is often the first step. And that's why we need to help this entrepreneur understand the US market, launch on the US market. And for us, the metrics is at different level, but one first metric is raising money. Last week, we had a startup with whom we work. We helped them define their go-to-market strategy in the US, and they raised 10 million in France to launch in the US and globally. So that's why for us it's obvious that you have to understand the US market and launch on the US market if this is the right time, of course.
Excellent. Any other comment on this?
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple of things. Also going back to your earlier question about metrics. So in the case of the Netherlands and the Netherlands Consulate, we help companies in a number of ways. We help individual growth companies that knock on our doors, and on an annual basis, that's some 150, as we call them, trade questions that we field with a very small team, I might add. And then we proactively help companies by building programs throughout the year. For example, our startup bootcamp programs are very popular, where we take a group of startup companies from the Netherlands in a certain sector, for example, and we bring them here to Silicon Valley and expose them to the ecosystem, expose them to stakeholders here. That can be venture capitalists, but it can also be partners, potential customers. And actually, our goal with that, and our goal overall in our economic team helping companies is threefold. So for example, for these boot camps, number one, we want to help the individual companies that participate in the bootcamp program, and we always try to choose them based on whether they have anything relevant to do here. For example, expand their market and look for customers here in the technology sector, because as you all know, Silicon Valley is a geographic region, but it's also synonymous with the US technology sector, right? And so the number two goal is for these companies, for these Dutch companies, to take the elements, the very elements that make Silicon Valley the success story that it is, and take those elements back to the Netherlands in our hopes that they will build out what they learned here and pay it forward and make the Netherlands startup orbit more conducive to delivering the next Mark Zuckerberg or what have you. And then the number three goal really of these bootcamp programs that we have is to show and participate in the Silicon Valley community and to show what the Netherlands has in terms of innovation and startup entrepreneurialism.
Does the nationality of a startup company matter, apart from the great job that each accelerator is doing, but does it matter in terms of having access to investors, the national reputation or the national network? Frankly speaking, does it matter? What's your ideas about it? Open to comments.
I'll start maybe. Well, for us Portuguese, being here in Silicon Valley is a little special because our immigration's been here for over 150 years. So we're well established, and so it kind of an added value for us to tap into that network of Portuguese that are especially here in the Bay Area. So for us it makes sense to have Portugal Venture, which is a public venture institution that selects companies in Portugal, startups in Portugal, brings them here, and then mentors them here, taps also within the Portuguese network.
I would say it does not matter if you have a great product, a great team, a great business plan, and a great go-to-market strategy. I think your investors will be interested in what you have to offer.
You agree?
Yeah, I agree with that, absolutely. With the past, we have found so many companies that have come here with that bias, saying that, hey, are they gonna treat us as less because we're from Europe, because we're from Spain? It doesn't matter at all. They don't only care about the product. They only care that investors only care about that you have a good strategy and that you can actually make it here. It doesn't matter where you're from.
So if this is the case, would you be ready to do activities jointly with other European accelerators? If nationality, after all, is not so important, why don't you work together?
Well, let me maybe quickly add to that, because I do see a big difference. The Germans are very modest when it comes to financing, right? And when they really put up very, very little numbers when they look for financing. And they say, oh, I'm looking for 1 million, 2 million in an A round. And US investors, for them, a lot of times, this is just thought way too small, right? And they don't really see the opportunity to scale there. And that's why they pass on this opportunity to work with German startups. And this is what a lot of the feedback of a lot of our mentors is, that when they work with German startups, they're just too modest. They don't have this big vision. They are too small thinking.
If I may add, that's not just a German problem. I think that startups, well, first of all, to your question, I think that because some 47% or whatever the metrics is, some 47% of venture capital money available in the US today is in the Silicon Valley corridor. So, and most venture capital money available is in the US. So I think that if you're a startup not from Silicon Valley and you're looking for money, it is hard. And especially if you think that coming to Silicon Valley is a solution for that, and it's not always, because being here is equally hard for different reasons than it's hard in Europe. For example, here in Silicon Valley, everyone and their grandmother is working on an innovative company, and so if you're looking for financing here in Silicon Valley, you have to be extremely compelling in order to get attention. And so to your point, I think it's startups here think differently about the world. They do think big. They aim much much than startups in Europe are used to doing. So there's a big difference there. And yes, we do work together, by the way.
Good.
Oftentimes.
This is an important statement.
I will just add, as your name is saying, mind the bridge. We are working every day to mind the bridge between French and US culture. And there are a lot, especially in business development. And so we would love to work together, but then we would have to mind the bridge between all our cultural differences, and it will take time.
Mind the bridge and bridge the mind, in a way.
But there's also, if I may make one more point about that, is that oftentimes these various regions in Europe have various specialties. Like, for example, the Netherlands is really on the forefront in, for example, agricultural technologies, and so it's may not be relevant to work together on that with other regions from Europe if there's not that similar interest per sector.
Anyway, sectoral, the sectoral divisional work was another point that I wanted to make, but I think we have run out of time, so I thank you so much for being here. I think you have given a different perspective. Thank you then, and buon lavoro for your success with the accelerators.
Thank you.